Thank you, Reverend David.
You're welcome.
I would like to introduce our speaker. Reverend David Shaw came here due to his wife speaking at COE and hasn't left yet. He is part of the backbone of COE, the president of the board of directors, head of the membership and garden committees, part of the choir, part of the newsletter PR committee, a counselor here, one of our IT people, and a strong supporter of us all. He also has a wild sense of humor. Please help me welcome to the podium the COE minister, Reverend David Shaw.
Spirit just asked me to add one.
Oh, okay.
Great taste in music. Terrible taste in jokes, but oops, I'm not supposed to say that one. The hardest part of speaking and picking the music is I have things to say about every song I chose, so you don't get to hear that. Maybe if I share and play them. Anyway, thank you, Reverend Lisa. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
The National Spiritualist Association of Churches website states, spiritualism is the science, philosophy, and religion of continuous life based upon the demonstrated fact of communication by means of mediumship with those who live in the spirit world. Spiritualism is a science because it investigates, analyzes, and classifies facts and manifestations demonstrated from the spirit side of life. Spiritualism is a philosophy because it studies the laws of nature both on the seen and unseen sides of life and bases conclusions upon those present observed facts. It accepts statements of observed facts of past ages and conclusions drawn therefrom when sustained by reason and by results of observed facts of the present day. Spiritualism is a religion because it strives to understand and to comply with the physical, mental, and spiritual laws of nature, which are the laws of God. While the Center of Enlightenment is an independent spiritualist church, we started out affiliated with the National Spiritualist Association of Churches, and we still follow their basic tenets. Therefore, part of our duties and responsibilities as spiritualists are to be lifelong learners. That is why we ministers continue to take courses, read, and learn. Plus, we offer educational courses here to the members, congregants, and the community at large. As I said earlier, spiritualism is a science because it investigates, analyzes, and classifies facts and manifestations demonstrated from the spirit side of life. Therefore, we are tasked with researching and documenting what goes on here at the Center of Enlightenment. They didn't like this gesture. I'm supposed to say, we. There. Now you're all responsible. For instance, last Sunday, I had 3 different people give me confirmations on the messages that I shared with them from Spirit. I had no prior knowledge of any of the topics, and sadly, I didn't write them down. So I don't remember who received the messages or what the confirmations were. I apologize for not documenting the data appropriately. I failed in my scientific duty. I will do better in the future because I've hardly written down any of the confirmations. I only remember a couple, and today I don't know if I remember any. What's my name? What's to say, Reverend David?
Oh, Reverend David.
Thank you. Now I remember. Again, spiritualism is a philosophy because it studies the laws of nature, both on the seen and unseen sides of life, and bases its conclusions upon present observed facts. It accepts statements of observed facts of past ages and conclusions drawn therefrom when sustained by reason and by results of observed facts of the present day. So therefore, We are required to take the research that we document and compare it to past conclusions. Then we decide to follow these past teachings or edit them to create teachings that are aligned with our current reality, because things do change. The vibration of the human race gets higher and higher all the time. I don't know about the 110, 220, 440 kind of philosophy stuff. I've been told that. I remember enough to say that. That's about it. I just know that in the Aquarian age and the Piscean age, all that stuff. Examples of how we're constantly evolving energetically and potentially spiritually, because we still have free will and we could choose to not evolve and be, curmudgeons. An example of this is our spiritual principles. They are written and revised by the NSAC over the past 90 years, but I think they still have something wrong. I think that they should be called our spiritualist principles, because we created them and we follow them. It's not just spiritual, it's spiritualist specifically. But that's just my opinion based on my understanding of the English language, which could be hit or miss. And speaking of spiritualist principles, I'll be teaching a course on them in July, and there are flyers in the foyer literature rack. So she's laughing because I'm promoting like she wants us to do. Finally, as spiritualism is a religion because it strives to understand and to comply with physical, mental, and spiritual laws of nature, which are the laws of God, we choose to understand and comply with the laws of nature, whether physical, mental, or spiritual. Now, if you do an internet search on spiritual natural laws, you will get many websites that don't have anything to do with spiritualism. I offer that fact as evidence that the principles should be titled spiritualist, not spiritual. Deepak Chopra has a site about spiritual laws of nature. Some other person, another organization. I saw about 6 of them just in the first page. None of them had anything to do with spiritualism. So that's why I think we should change that word. And anyway, that's, oh, there it is. I couldn't remember my transition. But back to our religion topic and the natural laws. The Spiritualist Fellowship Church of New England in Billerica, Massachusetts, lists 17 natural laws on their website. The New Vision Spiritualist Center of Orlando, Florida, lists 21 natural laws. And 5 of those are actually combinations of 2 different but similar laws. Also, they have a disclaimer. They say that these are a few of the laws. They haven't told you all of them. Here in August, Reverend Lisa Argo and Reverend Marie Phillips will be teaching a course on 33 natural laws. It used to be 31 when I started attending COE in 2015. And a few later, it was 32. And then before the pandemic, it became 33. Why so many additions, you ask? The defined laws keep expanding because of slight differences in definitions. As the New Vision Spiritualist Center of Orlando, Florida pointed out, there are many different but similar natural laws, like the laws of compensation and retribution. You're receiving things in exchange for something, but the reasoning why is different. The laws of balance and polarity. Balance is about being in the middle. Polarity is pointing out the 2 sides. The laws of cycles and periodicity. Cycles. Periodicity is goes around, comes around. So they're different directions. Still the same concept, just explained in different ways and has different applications. So on the New Vision Spiritualist website, there are a couple other combinations listed with easier words to say, but I wanted a challenge. Periodicity, now that's a challenge. Apparently, words is also a challenge because I just stumbled over that and I did periodicity fine, which I think is really funny. And then Spirit added this because they add stuff, right, Richard? So I graduated from Schoolcraft College with an associate's degree back in 1982, I think it was. Yeah, that's right. And I was honored to be one of 3 student speakers. They didn't call us commencement speakers because there was 3 students, and also they had a graduate who was an officer in the Naval Academy that did the actual commencement speech. But we got to speak. And I wrote about lifelong learning because at that point, at 22, I knew I was going to always be learning new stuff, and I thought that was important. And I read a couple books on it and articles in the library because that's how you did research in college. And I had sources annotated in my the back of my speech. I didn't read them off to the people because that's boring. But anyway, I got up there and gave my presentation for whatever it was, 6 to 8 minutes, and cried through the whole thing because I was speaking to 1,500 people, and I was leaving this supportive, comforting, challenging environment that I'd been in for 2.5 years and learned so much about myself. So I was grateful for that experience, and also I was terrified of what the future meant. So I cried through the whole thing. I got through the whole thing. Well, I was talking like this, and it was just ridiculous. Anyway, if they really paid attention, they could understand it. And the big compliment was the opinion and politics writer for the Livonia Observer, Tim Richards, who was one of the top columnists in the state at the time, said it was the best speech he'd ever read because they got copies of it and he couldn't understand what I was saying. I don't believe him because I'm sure in college he read Profiles in Courage because he was in a few years before me, you know, John F. Kennedy. I mean, give me a break. But it was really good. And part of that experience was I learned how to copy edit and rewrite because the student activities director, who was my mentor at the school, I wrote it, tore it up, literally. Do it again. It's all over the place. Doesn't make any sense. Wrote it from scratch again. I did have a word processor. That one, he and his assistant just crossed out stuff like X's, whole sections. Okay, it's not focused still. It's getting better. Do it again. So I wrote it from scratch a 3rd time. The 3rd version, they edited. Didn't hack out whole sections. It was like a paragraph they added, hacked out, but half of this sentence, quarter of that one. So then I edited it. Turned into 4th version. Oh, no, it doesn't make any sense. Tears it up again. Wrote it from scratch the 5th time. Edit. 6th one I gave to them. Little edit. 7th one. Okay, it's good enough now. And as I said, Tim Richards thought it was the best thing he ever read. So I believed in lifelong learning when I was a teenager, when I was a young adult, and I believe it today, standing in front of you now. And that's one of the things that attracted me to this church when my wife spoke, because of the classes and the ordination program and the love. So in conclusion, I hope you all understand why we, as spiritualists, are instructed to be lifelong learners, using science, philosophy, and religion as our guideposts. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Reverend David.
You're welcome, Reverend Lisa.
I like that. You're all